I like what Dave Chappelle said on his last special, where he said, "Look, Twitter is not a real place. It's not. Yeah, it's a place where ideas get propagated. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't have its powers. It does. It's a place where ideas spread. It's a place where news spreads. You know, but as far as the representation on Twitter isn't necessarily always representative of what we have in society. In fact, it's usually the opposite. I'll give you an example. Like I remember during the whole Twitter banning Nigeria saga that happened. No, Twitter banned Buhari for making certain statements about that were pretty much he talked about the Biafra war, or he tweeted about treating people the same way other people were treated during the Biafra war. It was, I would say, it was very insensitive, and that tweet was open to all sorts of interpretation. I remember this vividly, and Twitter responded by gagging Buhari. I think they suspended his account or something. I don't remember exactly what they did, but they did something that was pretty much in response to his tweet, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that Nigerians on Twitter were calling for Buhari to be suspended. Like they hated the fact that Buhari was making these comments because they felt like the comments were genocidal in nature. In fact, that was what they said. They said they were genocidal tweets, which is debatable in my opinion. I'm not saying what he said was good, but it was debatable. It wasn't. It's not really clear that you can say something is genocidal. He was referring to some people that were bombing election offices at the time in the south region of Nigeria, which is the same region where Biafra was. And he was saying, look, all these people, we will treat them, pretty much saying he will treat them the way that others were treated during the Biafra war. Basically saying that all these people that were, trying to stoke wars, he's going to deal with them. And because a lot of people see the Biafra war as a sort of genocide, a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people. And I think there's a very good argument to be made about that. I actually think there's a very good argument to be made about that. But the truth of the matter is that this is something that's highly debated in Nigeria, and a lot of people don't necessarily see eye to eye on this whole Biafra issue. Anyway, long story short, Nigeria responded to Twitter by completely taking Twitter off of Nigeria. And they decided that no one was going to have access to Nigeria. And there was all this hoopla. And I remember around that time, my mom was around. And I told her, I was like, did you hear what was going on? And I broke it down to her. And she was looking at me like, first of all, she was like, what the heck is Twitter? Now, keep in mind, my mom is like, she lives in Nigeria. She comes here often, like maybe like twice a year. But for the most part, she lives in Nigeria. And my mom is more representative of Nigeria's sentiments, because that's majority of Nigerians aren't necessarily on Twitter like that. Most Nigerians are hustling. They're trying to figure out their next meal. You know what I'm saying? So she was looking like, so when I broke the whole thing down for her, first of all, she was like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I didn't even know about this Twitter thing. That's how and if you were on Twitter around that time, you would think that was all Nigerians were concerned about this whole Buhari's tweets and Buhari banning Twitter, without realizing that the vast majority of Nigerians do not give a shit. And when I even broke down that part about, Buhari put out these tweets, she was like, yeah, what's wrong with the tweets? It's just that the way people saw things back then, it wasn't so black and white. Yeah, I do believe that Awolowo, may have used some tactics, very, very questionable tactics, to help win that war. And some would argue that some of it may have been genocidal in nature. But with war, man, a lot of things, things get murky sometimes. The point I'm trying to make is that, look, all these things that people talk about and argue about on Clubhouse and Twitter, most of it is not representative. What ends up happening is that the loudest, the most vocal of us end up on these apps, and it gives you this skewed sense of how Nigerians think. But that's not really the case. That's why Buhari could afford to get rid of Twitter and be like, no, you guys are getting out of here, even though most people still use VPN. But it's very important for people to really have perspective, because it's very easy to get sucked into these debates and fights on Twitter without realizing that the real world is different. That's why it really resonated with me when Dave Chappelle made that statement when he said Twitter is not a real place. It's not. It is not. And we need to understand that.